Darkness. A low, distant rumble. A whisper of wind sweeps across the void. It begins with a feeling, an almost supernatural pressure, like the breath of a giant inhaling before a roar that will redefine the world. In the farthest reaches of the Arctic sky, a cold blue glow shimmers over endless ice sheets. Yet beneath this frozen silence lies the story of the most destructive device ever touched by human hands, one built not merely to shatter mountains, but to shake the bones of nations. This is the journey inside the Tsar Bomb. The year is 1961, a time when the planet itself seemed to tremble under the weight of rivalry. The Cold War was not just political tension, it was a race for dominance measured in megatons. And deep within the Soviet Union, a team of physicists stared into the unknown, preparing to create something so powerful that even they feared its consequences. They called it the AN 602. The rest of the world would give it a name cloaked in awe and horror: the Tsar Bomb. Imagine standing inside the colossal hangar where it was assembled. Steel scaffolding reaching toward the ceiling like skeletal fingers, cables snaking across the floor, and in the center, a monstrous sphere of metal longer than a bus, weighing nearly 30 tons. Engineers moved around it with quiet urgency, their footsteps echoing like soft drumbeats of destiny. But to understand its terrifying potential, one must go inside, past the casing, past the protective shells, into the very heart where unimaginable energy waited to be unleashed. The core was a masterpiece of grim genius. Layers of fission and fusion material sat nestled like sleeping dragons, waiting for the piercing spark that would wake them. The mathematical symphony behind it was so precise that even a millimeter of misalignment could twist controlled destruction into cosmic chaos. And that was the true horror. This machine wasn't just a bomb. It was a controlled star, an artificial sun. Every component was designed with a single purpose: to trigger a chain reaction where hydrogen atoms would fuse, releasing a blast so immense it would outshine the dawn. The device was so potent that had its original yield been kept at full capacity, it could have shattered the atmosphere and scarred the Earth forever. Yet even at half its planned strength, it would become the most powerful explosion in human history. The day of the test approached like a storm. The world didn't know what was coming. Only the top Soviet scientists and military officials understood the scale of what they were about to unleash. They gathered at the airbase, their faces pale beneath the Arctic dawn. A specially modified Tu-95 bomber waited on the runway, its silver body gleaming under the dim light. It looked small beside the bomb strapped beneath it, a fragile bird carrying a miniature star. Inside the cockpit, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. They knew the detonation would be so intense that their survival was not guaranteed, even with the reflective white paint covering the plane to deflect heat. The engines roared to life, cutting through the icy silence. The bomber rose slowly, heavy and reluctant, as though the Earth itself did not want to release what it carried. Below, the endless snow stretched out like a blank canvas awaiting a violent signature. As the bomber approached the test zone over Novaya Zemlya, the bomb swung gently under its belly. Clouds passed beneath, unaware of the terror they shielded. The release mechanism was armed. The final instructions were clear. Drop the device. Pray the parachute holds. Turn and flee with everything the engines can give. The crew held their breath. And then, it fell. A massive metal titan descending slowly through the clouds, the parachute blooming above it like a deadly white flower. The plane banked sharply, engines screaming. The pilots pushed their machine to its limits, racing away from a sunrise of destruction. Seconds stretched into eternities. And then, light. A flash so bright it defied logic, erupting with the intensity of the sun itself. For a moment, the Arctic turned white-hot, as though the sky had cracked open and poured fire onto the Earth. Even at nearly 100 kilometers away, the escaping crew felt the shockwave rattle their bones. The fireball expanded with impossible speed, growing into a tower of flame taller than Everest. The surrounding air ignited, swirling into a titan of light that clawed its way into the stratosphere. Clouds vaporized instantly, rocks melted, the ground trembled as though awakening from a millennia-long sleep. A mushroom cloud rose higher and higher, 64 kilometers into the sky, dwarfing mountains, rewriting the atmosphere. Windows shattered more than 900 kilometers away. Villages felt the shockwave from hundreds of miles distant. The flash was seen from over 1,000 kilometers, a giant's torch against the dark sky. In that instant, humanity witnessed the closest thing it has ever created to a miniature sun. Now imagine standing inside that violent miracle. Imagine hearing the subatomic scream as atoms split and fused, releasing energy far beyond what the human mind can comfortably grasp. The Tsar Bomb didn't just explode, it unfolded, layer upon layer, like a blooming inferno. Inside, the pressure reached numbers that defy comprehension. Temperatures soared higher than the core of real stars. The reaction chamber became a cosmic forge, crafting destruction at a scale nature herself rarely attempts. Inside this machine, time seemed to warp. Matter disintegrated, light turned into a weapon. For a fraction of a second, the bomb created a world entirely its own, then destroyed it. What remained afterward was both silence and awe. Snow fell again over Novaya Zemlya, slowly burying evidence of what had occurred, as though the earth was trying to hide the scar. But the world would not forget. The Tsar Bomb became a symbol of power, of fear, of humanity's terrifying genius. It stood as a warning that in our pursuit of supremacy, we had stepped close to the boundary of self-annihilation. Scientists who worked on it later admitted they never wanted to see such a device used again. Even they were haunted by what they had created. Because the Tsar Bomb wasn't merely a weapon. It was a message written in fire. We now have the power to end everything. But the story doesn't end with the explosion. History shifted. World leaders trembled. Nuclear doctrines were rewritten. Nations realized that building bigger bombs would no longer guarantee dominance. They had stared into a blinding mirror, one reflecting not victory, but annihilation. The Tsar Bomb had exposed a truth too vast to ignore. Humanity had reached a point where war itself could erase the world it sought to conquer. Diplomats who once spoke boldly now measured every word. Generals who once believed in overwhelming force now questioned the meaning of power. The blast had not just torn through the Arctic air, it had torn through the collective conscience of the world. Reports traveled across continents, electrifying command centers and political halls. Some leaders felt awe, others felt dread, but all understood one thing: the threshold of destruction had been crossed. And so began a shift, a cautious, fragile movement toward restraint. Treaties emerged, not out of trust, but out of fear of what had been witnessed. The idea of mutually assured destruction was no longer theoretical. It had been painted across the sky in a brilliant flash and a towering cloud. Yet even as nations sought control, the shadow of the Tsar Bomb lingered. Scientists revisited formulas, analyzing the unimaginable energies unleashed. Philosophers questioned the morality of creating power without purpose. Historians noted that humanity had, in a single moment, stepped into a new epoch, one where the fate of the planet rested in the decisions of a handful of people. Inside secret laboratories, debates raged. Could a device so monstrous ever be justified? Could knowledge this dangerous ever be forgotten? Some argued that understanding such power was necessary to prevent its use. Others believed that merely possessing it was an invitation to disaster. And then there were those who saw deeper truths. They saw how the Tsar Bomb had revealed both the brilliance and the madness of the human mind. They saw how ambition, unchecked, could create suns in the sky, only to cast shadows across generations. As years passed, the world changed, but the memory remained. Each new conflict, each political shift, each trembling rise in global tension carried with it an echo, a reminder of that day in 1961 when humanity lit a fire brighter than the sun. For those who seek to understand the Tsar Bomb, the journey is not just through physics, metal, or history. It is a journey into the heart of human duality, the desire to explore versus the temptation to dominate, the capacity to create versus the impulse to destroy. And so the story stretches beyond the blast. It becomes a lesson, a warning, and a reflection. Because going inside the Tsar Bomb is not simply stepping into the world's most powerful weapon. It is stepping into a mirror that shows what we are capable of, and what we must never allow ourselves to become. Its fire may have faded from the Arctic sky, but its meaning burns on, an eternal reminder that power without wisdom is the most dangerous force ever forged by human hands.